All right, well, I'd like to welcome you all to the Better Buildings by Design conference this year. My name is Rebecca Foster, and I'm the Director of Efficiency Vermont. I have the privilege today of both welcoming you to the event and remembering and celebrating two fantastic Vermonters that we lost this past year. And I want to do that with you just to kick things off because of the importance of what they gave to our community and really the lasting impression and the lasting legacy that they bring to the work that we're doing here over the next 2 days. So I'd like to start by recognizing Ken Tohinaka. Many of you may have known Ken. He was, for 10 years, the Director of Weatherization at the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity. He also was a founding member of the VEIC Board of Directors. That's the organization that operates Efficiency Vermont. He was also a senior consultant with VEIC for 23 years, a good friend and colleague of mine. And he really understood that energy savings can make a huge impact on people, and he spent his life in building science, trying to make inroads and help the most vulnerable among our community. And as many of you know, he valued a good friend, a good laugh, and a good diner. He knew every diner within about a 10-state radius and was really the go-to person for good times and a good laugh. We're going to be honoring Ken and keeping his legacy alive through a memorial fund, to help increase innovation and education on building science in the state. So if you're interested in finding out more about that fund, I encourage you to stop by the Efficiency Vermont booth to get some more information on that. And then the second person I'd like to honor this morning and celebrate is Mike Rogers. Many of you in the Efficiency Excellence Network knew Mike. He was a trainer for years, offering courses that really paired excellent content of building science along with contracting principles and how to grow businesses and reach customers. He was a nationally recognized expert who started the Home Performance with Energy STAR program while he was at EPA, and then later as a consultant to EPA. It was based right here in Burlington and really chose to dedicate his life and his work to building science, to home performance, to home retrofits, and growing contractor businesses. And for those of you that knew Mike, he was really a larger-than-life personality. When he entered a room, things changed. The energy he brought, the enthusiasm he brought, really a remarkable person, really changed the way that we think about our work. We're going to miss Mike's passion, his energy, and his enthusiasm, and again, we'll be honoring him going forward in 2019 by running trainings that he designed for Efficiency Excellence Network members. So I want to just ask us to come together, celebrate their legacy over the next 2 days. These are two individuals who gave really their life's work to the work that we're now continuing, and want to remind us all to really take their legacy, their passion, their enthusiasm, and apply it as we come together to work over the next few days. So it's a good way to start the conference today, I think. The next thing I'd like to do is talk for just a few minutes about the changing needs of Vermonters. So at Efficiency Vermont, the focus of our work for years since we were founded in 2000 has been really mostly on reducing electricity use in the state. And our performance goals were structured that way, and that made sense. The work was really premised on the fact that saving electricity was less expensive than buying it, and we've seen ways that we've helped customers save over the years. This chart shows declining residential energy use in Vermont compared to New England and the US averages. So we've seen a steady reduction in Vermont of residential electricity use over time. And that's partially due to the work of everyone in this room, so a good accomplishment. And the impacts don't stop there. Really over time, since 2000, all of the work that we've done together adds to about 16% of the residential electricity use, the total electricity use in the state in 2017. So said differently, without Efficiency Vermont's work, without the work of everyone in this room, Vermont would have needed to purchase and supply 16% more electricity in 2017 than we did. That's a big accomplishment. Another way to think about that is adding up all of the verified electricity savings over time. That adds to 17.7 terawatt hours of electricity. That's like 7 500 megawatt power plants. So a huge accomplishment. Again, 7 power plants are not in existence today. They didn't have to be built because of the work of the people in this room. Truly remarkable. And times are changing. So we know, due to some of that work, due to the large inroads we've made in efficiency across the state, and due to the influx of renewable energy on the grid, things like solar, which you can see here has a very fast-paced trajectory for growth over the next few years, that times are changing. We know now that simply looking at megawatt-hour reductions, electricity use reductions, that's not the only way that we're going to solve our energy challenges in the future. We know we need to do more and think about things differently. Now what we're realizing is that the value of the electricity savings that we generate, it can differ in terms of time or location, in terms of cost, and in terms of carbon impact. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those different factors now. So we'll take cost first. This chart shows an example back from 2016 of a day in New England with the highest electricity usage. This is our peak day, and it shows the price difference between electricity purchased and used in the middle of the night and electricity purchased at the peak in the afternoon. And you can see there's a 1,200% difference from a low of $28 per megawatt hour to a high of over $380 a megawatt hour. So when we use electricity, when we save electricity, can have very different cost implications for the people that we're helping and for our customers. And then moving to environmental impact, greenhouse gas impact. This chart is just conceptual. It shows a big solar peak. This is like any given day, let's say a summer day, looking at renewable energy generation, sun shining in the afternoon. We have a big peak of solar energy available. We might have other renewables available in the base load with that green. And then we've got a line here, electricity demand. Over time, the work of Efficiency Vermont has really been to reduce that red line, bring the whole line down through efficiency that saves 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And what we're starting to think about now is, well, saving all the time is a good thing, but what if we could also shape when the electricity is used? What if we could match our usage by working with our customers so that the electricity usage was really matched with the availability of these renewable sources? That's really the next frontier that we're working on. And we know that electricity is important. We know that energy efficiency in the electric sector has continued benefits. I'm going to talk about those just for a moment. One is reduced peak usage, as I showed. That has significant cost benefits because electricity used at the peak is very expensive. But it also has greenhouse gas benefits, since the peak is often less renewably driven than other times of the year. So we're really focused on trying to use the energy in new ways, different ways, so that we're saving greenhouse gases as much as we possibly can. Another benefit is improved health, and our keynote speaker will talk through the connection between efficient buildings and healthy buildings. That's one that we're learning much more about, and really we have a lot of work to do in that area to make sure that every time we touch a building or home, we're leaving it in a better state, and that we're valuing those health benefits over time. And lastly, reduce cost. Reduce cost both for our customers that participate, that upgrade their systems, that weatherize their homes, but also reduce cost in terms of meeting our state goals, our statutory renewable energy goals, our goals that are in the comprehensive energy plan for the state. If we can reduce the overall amount of electricity used, then making that electricity grid renewable would cost less. Also, efficiency can free up capacity on the electric grid so that we can electrify sources like heating and transportation that are often non-electric right now. And we know these benefits are real in part because we've done some pilot projects already that really are testing out and proving out these concepts. So I'll give one example now of Brattleboro Retreat. And those of you that are interested in learning more, please look at your programs. There's a session tomorrow morning at 11 on the topic. And they'll go into many more details than I'm able to in this introduction. But really, Brattleboro Retreat is a good example because they had a very interesting system. It's a kind of an unconventional system to heat or to cool its buildings. It's an electric-powered chiller that does two things. One, that chills water in order to run through the buildings and cool them over the course of summer days. But then second, the chiller can make ice, which is then stored in these tanks that you see here, insulated storage tanks, that then can be called upon during times of peak load to cool the buildings. So the chiller can shut down and the ice can do the job of the cooling that's needed. And this project came about in a kind of an unconventional way, as I said. It took a lot of collaboration between the retreat, between Dynamic Organics, between Efficiency Vermont and Green Mountain Power, kind of coming together and seeing how we could find and extract the most value from this system and use it as a storage asset. And by making ice and cooling the buildings with ice instead of buying power at peak times, the retreat is seeing a $20,000 annual decrease in its energy cost. So again, it's about shaping the energy usage, doing that work in new and different ways to deliver cost savings to customers. And all of this is really having us take a step back and rethink the value proposition of the work. As I mentioned, for years and years, the focus has been simple electricity use reductions. Now we're thinking about that differently. We're thinking about energy cost reduction, energy writ large, maybe not only electricity in the equation. And we're thinking about the value of greenhouse gas reductions. If we think about these two things as the way we deliver customer value in the future and ratepayer value and value to the state, it opens up some new opportunities and new possibilities in terms of the technologies we promote, the controls that we might use in systems and buildings, the kind of training and technical capabilities we need to develop in the state. So I want to just encourage all of you over the next 2 days as you go through the sessions to be thinking about this future and the energy system transition and how it might be different from the past. And spend some time thinking about how you can help your customers make decisions that will save energy cost now and into the future as the system transitions. And please give feedback to Efficiency Vermont staff and leadership about how we can support you during this transition. It's important to us that we are meeting your needs as the people who are out in the field working with customers, delivering these amazing results. And we want to make sure that we're all working together as we think about future energy cost reductions and greenhouse gas reductions in our state. No one organization can do this alone. So we need to be hearing from you what you need from us. And we need together to be figuring out how to best deliver future value to our customers. So at this point, you've heard from me. That's the focus of the next 2 days. Now I'd like to hear from you. Last year we did at the opening plenary a poll of the building trades. So if everyone could get out their phones, make sure they're on mute or just vibrate. We want to take a poll, and so to do this you'll need to get out your phones, open up the text messaging app, and text the message BBD poll to the number 22333. Standard text messaging rates apply. I just need to say that. And also, we would love it if Efficiency Vermont staff hold off on participating because we really don't want to skew the results. We want to hear from the audience, from the crowd today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put a warm-up question up on the screen. Again, you can see up here the text message and the number again, BBD poll. Text that to 22333. And we'll just do this warm-up question to get a sense of how this all works, and then we should see the results on the screen. So the warm-up question. At tonight's reception, sponsored by Dakin and Vermont Gas Systems, which beverage has your name on it? So beer, red wine, white wine, soft drink, craft beer drinkers in the room, not a surprise in Vermont. So this is how it works. You'll see as more people text in and send their message in, we've got the results showing up on the screen. Everybody good with how this works? Okay. The next questions will be equally fun, I promise. All right. Looks good. So now, which of the following terms most closely matches your profession? We want to get a sense of who's in the room. Contractor, design professional, distributor, supplier, facility manager, manufacturer, or government agency or nonprofit. This will help us understand and kind of tailor all of the content over the next 2 days. Still some responses coming in, looks like. Great. Lots of contractors and design professionals in the room. Okay, next question. What do you value most about your partnership with Efficiency Vermont? Incentives, technical consultation or support, marketing support, visibility, or customer leads? This is good info for us as we think about program design changes and what this group really values and finds most useful. Give it one more second. Okay, that's great. So we're seeing about 34% incentives, almost 50% technical support. That's good to know. And then some marketing and customer leads. Great. Okay, how do you feel about your company's financial outlook in 2019? I expect our profits to decline is A. I expect our profits to increase is B, and remain flat is C. So really give us a sense, what's your view of the economic picture, the financial outlook for this year? That's a pretty positive outlook that we're seeing so far. Okay, great. Just a few more questions. Which of the following would best support your company's growth and financial stability? Lower taxes and fees, increased customer demand, more available, well-trained workforce, or fewer regulatory or permitting hurdles? So what's the thing that would really help you grow and support your financial stability as an organization? Again, this helps Efficiency Vermont figure out where we need to focus. We can't do a lot about taxes and fees, but we can help with consumer demand and workforce training. Give it one more minute. Okay, fantastic. Thank you all so much. I believe that was one more question, sorry, last item. So what one word reflects your motivation for the work that you do? So this is just, I know you enter in any word, any one word you like, enter that in, and then send that off to the poll. And what that'll do is build a word cloud for us, so it'll start to populate. The words that get the most support will show up larger on the screen. So let's see what's your motivation for the work. Money, right in the center, looking pretty big right now. Climate, beer, excellent. Curious who Wally is. That's great. Kids, I like to see that. This is always fun. Super. Green building professional development as all one word. That's very creative. Yeah. Super. Let's give this one more word. I know this is a tough one folks are thinking through. All right, climate, money, sustainability. Those look like the top three right there in the center. Climate justice, energy, comfort, whiskey, also. Yeah, good. Paycheck, important. Super. Well, thanks so much for participating. That was the last question, and this is really helpful to just understand, where we are, ground us, and what's the economic outlook that you see, what motivates us all to be here today. We will be able to take care of the beer motivation tonight at the reception, so I hope you'll join us there. And we have a little bit more celebrating to do. So now I want to move into the Best of the Best awards and share really the highlights of this year with this whole group. And what I'll ask is that the award recipients head to the back of the room after the keynote, and we will take pictures, we'll get together and have a little bit of an event back there so that we can get photos and then get those publicized. I'll also ask, we have a lot of winners to go through, so let's hold applause till the end, and then we'll do a big all round of applause for everyone who has won. So I'm going to start off with residential new construction, as you can see on the screen. We have first the overall best in residential new construction, RG Builders for home in Burlington. Beautiful home here. For affordability award, Vermont out of Wilder, Vermont. This particular home is in Barnard on the next slide. That wins our affordability award. And I do want to put a plug in for the Vermont on Tour, which is out in the parking lot. I really encourage folks to take a look at that. And then the Innovation Award at Helm Construction Solutions. This is a home in Newfane, really beautiful home, a lot of innovative features here. So again, Helm is at this event. I encourage you to find them and find out more about that home. So 3 winners in the residential category. Then moving to the commercial building design and construction category, we have a few more to share with you. First for new construction goes to Freeman French Freeman for City Market in the south end of Burlington. It's a beautiful store. Really amazing energy efficient story here. The next award for major renovation goes to McClay Architects for a dorm at Putney School, the Gray Dorm in Putney, Vermont. Really fantastic renovation, lots of energy savings here. Again, award-winning for renovation. And then the Partner of the Year, Vermont Integrated Architecture out of Middlebury for the work that they have done all across the state. So we really want to recognize those partners in the commercial, new construction, and design category. And then moving to the Efficiency Excellence Network, we have a few Best of the Best awards here. One for the Leadership Award, Alex Carver from Northern Timbers Construction in Ripton. And then second, Partner of the Year, Lloyd Plumbing and Heating and Gas Services in Cabot. So those are the Best of the Best awards. Let's give them all a round of applause. Congratulations. Great. And there are stories, and you'll see some showcase materials about each of the award winners, I believe, out in this hallway. So really, please seek them out, ask them about their projects and their companies, their approach, their staff, philosophy. These are the projects and the organizations that we can all learn from. Now for some housekeeping items before our keynote. First, if you are a Twitter fan, the hashtag BBD19 is the handle. So if you're tweeting about the event, please use that, and that'll bring all of the tweets together. Secondly, continuing education credits. If you're here seeking either AIA or BPI credits, please just make sure to have your name tag scanned as you leave the meeting rooms throughout the course of the 2 days. And as I said, Best of the Best award winner photos, please go to the back of the room after the keynote. And a final note that all slides will be available online by Friday. So as you're in the sessions, if there are things you want to follow up on, you can either approach the presenters afterward, but know that all the slides will be on the website. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our keynote speaker, Ruth Ann Norton. Ruth Ann is the president and CEO of Green and Healthy Homes Initiative. She's a national expert on lead poisoning prevention, innovative financing, and healthy, safe, and energy-efficient housing. So Ruth Ann has led GHHI's innovative work to use housing as a platform for improved health for years, and she was the architect behind Maryland's 98% reduction in childhood lead poisoning, a huge accomplishment. She's written numerous articles and publications and served as an advisor to the Pew Charitable Trust report, 10 Policies to Prevent and Respond to Childhood Lead Poisoning. And while Ruth Ann takes the stage, we're going to show about a 3-minute video in the background, just so you can start to get yourself grounded in the importance of our building spaces for health. And Ruth Ann is going to share a lot of materials and context that, again, we can take into our work in the future, but really can ground us over the next 2 days as we think about how to find the nexus between healthy, efficient buildings in Vermont. So with that, please join me in welcoming Ruth Ann, and then we will show our video. Thanks.
In 160 seconds, you will decide how the story ends. This is a story about us, the indoor generation. A generation that spends 90% of its life indoors. It all started the day we left nature behind. We filled our homes with lovely things and all the stuff we wanted. Our homes became places you would never want to leave. Artificial light replaced daylight, and we built our houses so that nothing could escape. We cooked and showered, breathed and played, slept and sweated. But we had closed ourselves in to a point where nothing could get out. So when the air turned bad inside, we tried fixing it with chemicals. And we put in little artificial suns everywhere to make the darkness bearable. That's when things started to happen. Hard to notice in the beginning. Some needed help to sleep, to breathe, to not itch. Many of us even started to feel sad. So we turned on happy lamps to make the sadness go away. Then, scientists discovered that the air inside our homes is up to 5 times more polluted than the air outside, and that the lack of daylight can affect children's learning and increase blood pressure. It turns out that kids' rooms often have the highest concentration of toxicants in the house. In fact, millions of homes are unhealthy to live in. They discovered that living in damp and moldy homes increases the risk of asthma by 40%. And I learned that millions of people like me suffer from asthma and allergies caused by a bad indoor environment. And so, here we are. How the story ends is up to you, because it's not written yet. If you care about the indoor generation, do something. Begin to think and live differently. Let light and fresh air into your life again. Even small changes can make a huge difference for coming generations. Learn how at theindoorgeneration.com.
Good morning. On that happy note, right? I am so delighted to be in Vermont. I want to thank my dear friend Elizabeth Chant for getting me here. I am almost to 50 states. We had planned that this would be the 50th state, but unfortunately things changed in my schedule last year. Still got Kentucky and Vermont to go, but I'm going to come back because I spent a lovely evening last night here in Burlington, and how do you not come back to Vermont? So thank you, and thank you, Rebecca, for the great introduction, for having me here. And can we all just give Efficiency Vermont like a great round of applause just for being the terrific organization that it is? You should know, before I get started, I'm going to try to do this in about 40 minutes so we have time for Q&A. But I was thinking about my own life in the last week and a half. So we all read about the polar vortex. My staff just gave me a kind of a slide about it that they stuck in here to remind us about climate and its impact on housing and families. But in the last week, I've been in Des Moines, Iowa at negative 65 degrees with wind chill, where literally the fuel froze in my airplane. Went through Minneapolis and Chicago just because I wanted more torture. And I left yesterday 72 degrees and sunny in Baltimore. So we have a lot to deal with. But as we talk today, it is about the impact of climate, which I saw in your word mix up there. Definitely saw beer. But being the optimist about things, I also saw 2 words, not as large, but important: health and equity. And I saw education as well. And I think this is so critical, not only to how we proceed and what we do moving forward, so that we can change circumstances so that kids aren't dying, people can sleep through the night, we can get those kids to the classroom healthy and ready to learn, which is the sole reason that I got into the work around lead, around healthy housing, and why in 2008 and 2009, I had written a paper around the need for the healthy housing field to enter into partnerships with weatherization and energy efficiency. The truth is, it was a propaganda move in some part because I want to see lead poisoning eradicated in this country. I want to see asthma reduced. I want to see people get healthier. And the work you all do touches the largest amount of rehab in the country, the largest opportunity, but it also has one of the largest impacts on health. And so when we got a call from the incoming White House in 2008, 2009, to look at what was happening to the $5 billion of investment that was going to happen through the American Recovery Act, and what its impact would be on health, as soon as I told the White House if we sealed up the houses the wrong way, the kids could go to the emergency room, and that could become a headline in the Washington Post. Trust me, they paid attention. Just briefly on our organization's background, we were founded by 9 parents whose children were in the intensive care unit at Johns Hopkins Hospital. And what's important about that is all of the families whose kids were going through 28-day chelation treatment at the time, whose brains were impaired, who also suffered from asthma and poor housing conditions, who were moving at a rate about 42% a year in turnover. They lived literally 1 block behind Johns Hopkins Hospital. And at the time, and we continue to believe, one of the greatest health institutions in the world. And so what it sets up and for us and has set up for a path that this vision statement written by one of the parents to break the link between unhealthy housing and unhealthy children that we are pursuing still 33 years later is that it showed us so much about the twin tragedies of older housing stock, its challenges, but it also showed us about the opportunity of thinking outward and looking outward as those parents did in what we can and must accomplish. So it's our challenge every day in our organization and in the field that we help to lead. The Green and Healthy Homes Initiative has emerged as the largest healthy homes nonprofit organization in the country. Having started with 1 person in 1993, we now are an organization of close to 60 individuals working throughout the country. And our charge every day is to think about how do we end the toxic legacy of unhealthy housing and use it as an opportunity to improve climate, to improve health, but mainly to improve outcomes about people getting to work, sleeping through the night, kids competing in the classroom. It is our path that we think about equity, equality, and opportunity. So those 30 million families a year living in unhealthy housing in the United States yield us asthma, the #1 reason that kids miss school, and something over which you have so much power to change and have been doing for decades, but really we see what you're doing as leading and changing that. But we also see it as healthcare. And I'm going to talk about that. But in our work, in trying to address this, we're not only trying to address the impact on asthma, but while we integrate this work to lower lead poisoning, to prevent falls and injury, which have the highest return on investment when that work is done, but to stabilize families, to give them an opportunity to get out of chaos and the loss of income, marginal or larger, by addressing the disproportionality of energy inefficiency and its impact on low-income communities. In our work, we aim to move that $155 billion out of avoidable costs and into the work that you're doing. So we know that we have this enormous impact, and lots of studies around this and lots of looks around the fact that 1 in 3 households are facing those challenges in meeting the energy needs. It's leading in low-income communities around the country to that 36 to 42% turnover in the rental markets. But it has a larger impact on what we now define in the world I come from, the health world, the social determinants of health, or as the Medicaid director in North Carolina just renamed, health opportunities. And I love the look at that. But by addressing housing and taking on what I think is a moral compass of who we are in this country. If we look at housing condition and how we allow people to live, or how we have applied laws or economic investment in housing condition, it tells us so much about what we aspire for our community together. But the social determinants that every Medicaid organization, every Medicaid managed care, every hospital now in their look to move from volume in hospitals to value of outcomes is looking at these social determinants. And the world that you're living in and I'm living in housing, is impacting the economic outcomes. People don't sleep through the night. They're caring for their children that's in the emergency room. They're not going to get to work. And for many who live at or below the poverty line, not getting to work even one day results in being fired. So it disrupts that job security. It clearly has health impacts. You see them every day. I see them every day. Poor indoor air quality, poor energy efficiency, poor weatherization leads to mold and mildew and moisture that leads to asthma, respiratory disease. And as we know in looking at the studies that Oak Ridge did on energy efficiency and weatherization, it increases trips and falls. And all of it has a direct pathway to educational outcomes. So I spend a lot of my time every day talking to foundations like Gates and others who want to ensure grade level reading outcomes for every child in America, who want to ensure graduation rates. They have to be looking at the work that you're doing. Because kids coming out of poor, energy inefficient, unhealthy housing, 50% of the time will never meet grade level reading. And that is a trajectory for life. And this housing insecurity not only leads to educational deficiencies and workforce and work attainment, but it's a drain on income retention, and it has a major impact on mental and emotional health, not to mention the health of communities and the destabilization. So we're focused on this kind of, I would call it a revolution, but it's been a 30-year look, and we're still going, and a long way to go on this. But this intersection now of housing and health. And we've started to get extraordinary traction, which I'll talk about. But if I just tell you today, the Enterprise Foundation just put on the street $250 or $350 million that you should be looking at in grants and investments in communities to answer the call around housing repair, remediation, development, and its impact on health. The work you're doing in the communities that you are in should be looking at that. The U.S. Treasury next month will put out on the street an application for cities, towns, counties, states, $100 million for a program called CIPRA. It's called the Social Impact Performance, I don't know what the rest of it stands for, but communities who invest in housing, who invest in things like energy efficiency, using the studies that exist today, can set outcome measures, bring investment in, set the outcome measures, and the federal government will pay back to those investors and to those communities the outcome payments. So if you are helping kids to stay out of the emergency room, helping adults not be hospitalized for asthma, improving stability, you have an opportunity in that competition to look at that. But it's a bigger framework that we're looking at, which is to change all of the systems on how health and healthcare dollars support energy efficiency and weatherization. When we got into the work at GHHI, this is what we were looking to solve. So we spent 20 plus years as the Coalition to End Childhood Lead Poisoning, and I'm proud of my organization for the courage to expand and look at housing holistically. But we did it because our client base in Baltimore was forced to look at this kind of grid to try to solve the multifaceted issues of energy, health, and safety in their homes. It meant that if they had leaky roofs and bad windows and pest issues, poor insulation, that they were probably going to have to apply to 5 or 6 different programs independently with qualifications that most of us wouldn't know if it was put in front of us, of whether we are 80% of median income, 200% of poverty, live in certain census tracts, et cetera. And what we found is there was failure. We would get part of the way, and people and resources would get exhausted. But the government wasn't delivering, and when they deliver this way, isn't delivering in the best use of taxpayer dollars. So we looked to change that by bringing alignment of our philanthropic dollars, our public government dollars, and private investment together in a single stream, and to look holistically at housing, both the people that live there and the health clinic to home connection, but the structures that were impacting and are impacting their health every day. So this is Hector Moreno. He's on our staff in Baltimore. He loves the fact I use his picture. And he's the guy that has like every credential. I feel like he opens his vest and he's like, over here I'm a BPI guy, and I'm a lead guy, and I'm a weatherization guy. But he represents what we have tried to do and model with our contractors, our assessors throughout the country, and that is to have an integrated set of skills. And by doing so, the Center for Employment Opportunities did a study of our work in Buffalo and showed that just for the baseline workers, we were upping and sustaining their incomes by $4,000 to $8,000 a year for the workers, and more opportunity for our environmental assessors. But what we were also doing is saving government about 25% per home by the aligned investment, which meant for our mayors that we work with around the country, for every 4 homes they might have been able to help get done in the past, we can now do 5. And then we've added on to that the health factors, right? So ours is a holistic, whole house approach. I saw your health department here. I went up and said hello to them. They're my favorite people in the room. I love everybody, but love the health people. But to look at this holistically and to readjust that $150, $155 billion of avoidable cost, your taxpayer dollars, my taxpayer dollars, to be better spent upstream, up front. And we also, always want to put a plug in for this, worked with BPI to ensure that the 16,000 home performance contractors in America have the opportunity to get a micro-credential on healthy housing, and we're glad to be moving that forward with them and mandating it in states around the country. But let me tell you what the studies and the work that we've done, right? We run a direct service program in Baltimore, and we have about 36 cities in the country who are designated and qualified to fly the Green and Healthy Homes flag around their approach to aligning and braiding and coordinating to support energy and health for better outcomes for kids and seniors. But this is an example of one of the 2 studies that we did with U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. What's not listed here is, they are listed here, sorry, our utility, Baltimore Gas and Electric, that was known then as Constellation, now known as Exelon. That story will come back in a minute. And we had health institutions like Hopkins, Managed Care Institution, Amerigroup. And we wanted to look at the cost-benefit analysis of energy interventions that lowered asthma, improved indoor air quality, and also addressed health and safety. And in our work, we don't do surveys. We do surveys, but it's not the baseline by which we do our work. We actually take patient data from state Medicaid programs and actually look at that empirical data to to judge the outcomes on health and the cost savings created, as well as looking at utility records and the broad cost. So this chart kind of gets to it in some point. I'll make it easier in just a second, showing that lower tier interventions, education supplies, teaching families and having more for them to do it themselves with a little bit of pest management help is good, but relatively flat. But when we did interventions around indoor air quality, insulation, energy, and things like fixing leaky roofs, we had a much more dramatic outcome. So the top one you see here is the first study we did. The second study shows that I can't give you the final results of that because it hasn't been published by HUD yet. It will and has better results. This slide was a little peek into that. But our first study that looked at 240 families, 139 kids who are chronically missing school and repetitively hitting the classroom, not taking into account that when you go into a home where there's an asthmatic or someone for respiratory disease, suffering from respiratory, that you're likely going to have more, including the adults who are much more costly. But this one was predicated just on kids, 139 kids in those 240 families. When we improved their insulation, their indoor air quality, and their general health and safety, what we got was a 66% reduction in hospitalizations for folks that were under AmeriGroup, the managed care organization. But what I love is a 62% change from missing somewhere between 10 to 22 days of school a year to perfect attendance. That's amazing. And an 88% improvement on child's asthma. The lead statistic has to do with our overarching work, but that lead statistic that is aligned with this work, by the way, Duke University, hard for me to say this since I'm a UNC Chapel Hill grad, so I don't like Duke, and if you went to Duke, I apologize. But Duke University said the work we have done in this work has returned to Baltimore $44.5 billion in economic returns. Our job today is how do we get those economic returns tied back to the communities where the gains were found. In Philadelphia, they beat us in Baltimore. They have a 76% reduction in emergency room visits for the kids who fall into this program, 70% hospitalization reduction. And Cleveland, results, I always hate putting it up here because it looks like it's like a failure at 58%. That's phenomenal, 58%. And all of this is opportunity, but all of it is jobs, and all of it is why building along with this case on asthma reduction that you get a $5 to $14 return, and if you add lead work to that, you're getting somewhere between a $17 to $221 return. All of it is an economic opportunity to reinvest in housing. I could tell you literally 2, 3, 4, 10,000 cases around this work. But we'll pick one that we think is kind of the road. Department of Energy has one of our kit families up. It's so phenomenal that it almost seems too good to be true, and happy to talk about the Young family. But this is the Obanuka family that lives in Baltimore, whose young child, first 3 years of her life, was hitting the hospital once a year. If you've had trouble breathing, I just had pneumonia in November, it's scary. On oxygen, to be on nebulizers, it's scary for a young kid. But she, on average, was hitting the emergency room 5 times a year. And what does that mean on a family? And the drain on the family, not to mention the dozens and dozens of nights of not sleeping through the night comfortably, being scared, having the health impacts. Well, we went in and we looked at that house holistically. And we addressed more than just the energy in this. We took the opportunity to look at the mechanicals, to look at the lead, to look at the mold, mildew, and moisture. But about $4,000 was spent to reduce asthma triggers. Much of it was around energy interventions. We have great outcomes. One is the daughter, this was in 2016 when the work was done. The slide was put together, and the study shows 12 months, never missed school, no return to emergency rooms. That remains true today. I always check before I come on the road, right? But we also had a 24% reduction in energy cost, and just the 1 year of Medicaid savings, cashable, provable savings, $26,500. So if you're the managed care organization, it's in your best interest to spend the $4,059. We can align the other dollars, right, from other programs, to get a $26,000 savings. We're doing this work around the country. This is a family in Syracuse, but we're in Rhode Island, we're in Buffalo, we are all over the country. We're in Jackson, Mississippi, where we're starting to do this work. And this is our footprint today, where we are working with, believe it or not, we got money out of this EPA to fund us to match energy and indoor air quality programs, service providers, you all, with Medicaid programs to provide reimbursement. And I'll talk about those examples. But when I was in Des Moines, the state Medicaid director likes this so much that on February 28th, he's pulling the 3 managed care organizations in to meet with me and him, and he's going to tell them that they must do this. In New York State, there's now a mandate in Medicaid to invest in Tier 1 service providers, people like you and I doing this type of work, a mandate to fund the work. And the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative was the example for their boot camp to train the managed care organizations. But we're also working with Energy Efficiency for All, and thank God for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, who saw the opportunity of the work you're doing as an opportunity for where health should be moving. Lots of great partners here. TVA, nation's largest power company, became the first member. We didn't even have membership, and they helped us to create, because they wanted to become a member of GHHI and its standards. And now every investment they are making in Tennessee and northern Alabama is meeting the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative standard for investment, because it works. That's the utility side. That's the power company side of looking at that. But what are our lessons that we're putting forward? It's taken us a long path, right? It's a relatively long path from 2009 to 2018, from our first meetings in the White House and from our first study that we did for them, showing that in Baltimore and Atlanta, part of the problem was that 62% of the families in those 2 cities were being deferred and declined because we weren't dealing with the health and safety issues. So it led to, how do we redefine 11.6 and the DOE standards? How do we start to bring the alignment together? How do we define non-energy benefits and have them calculated in public service commissions for investment in utilities and in health systems, right? And how do we confer those benefits into real dollars? Many others doing these studies. This piece that we did is 163 pages, so when you are really having trouble sleeping at night, please pull it out. It tells you everything you need to know around this work. But what did all of this start to compel? Some interesting things to think about. In New York State, it compelled the then Attorney General Andrew Cuomo, who we had worked with to expand the Office of Lead Hazard Control at HUD to the Office of Healthy Homes, to take settlement funds from a lawsuit that 10 states had against American Electrical Power and redistribute that to start green and healthy homes initiatives in Buffalo, in Rochester, in Syracuse. The Attorney General in Rhode Island replicated that and then just did something one better. Anybody here ever drive a Volkswagen? I did, right? And Volkswagen cheated on their diesel emissions, remember that? So the United States Attorney General sued them. That money in Rhode Island came from Volkswagen to improve energy efficiency and health in Rhode Island houses. Talk to your Attorney General. Right? In Austin, we got the mayor to take settlement funds and put it into their bonds to require this work, right, and to look at it. And in Maryland, when Exelon bought Constellation and Baltimore Gas and Electric, we took the outcomes of that Healthy Homes technical study showing that 66% reduction in hospitalizations, 62% improvement in school attendance, 88% improvement in workforce attendance, and they nicely convinced Exelon's money to put $38 million into energy efficiency weatherization through green and healthy home standard in the state of Maryland. This is what data can do. So we are now getting ready to roll out a program, or NYSERDA is getting ready to roll out a program where we have done a pilot design, a feasibility study and pilot design that's going to put health and safety dollars out along with energy efficiency and get repaid by Medicaid. And in Connecticut, we've got 7 agencies all aligned to build on the health benefits and have Medicaid be the long-term reinvestor to build an evergreen fund of housing, safety, health, safety, and energy. This is movement that's happening today. We're also looking at all of these things that if you're not in the health world, right, but it's the things that are really important here. Hospital community benefit funds. Every nonprofit hospital in the United States is required by the IRS to be investing in their community to improve chronic disease, health issues, and stability. Nothing improves stability and to some degree health better than energy efficiency and weatherization in communities across the country. The Boston Medical Center just wrote a $6.5 million check to support this work. There are Medicaid CHIP waivers available, Children's Health Insurance Program, that I do remind people that Hillary Clinton helped to do, give her one good credit, lots of good credit, but one thing in this day and age to remember. But that program has $960 million of unused administrative dollars. That means money not being used by state programs. The states started to get smart, started with the lead work. And then we expanded to asthma in many of these states where they can draw down additional dollars. Those asthma interventions that are happening are in part energy interventions, along with other health interventions, but something to talk to your state about. Do you remember the study I talked about and all the kids were AmeriGroup, right? What AmeriGroup found out in the study that we did of those energy interventions is that we were saving them $700 per month per patient. Cashable savings to AmeriGroup in their pocket, right? Now, they will eventually have to share those savings back to state Medicaid, but they recognized that they could do something cheaper that had longer sustainability and better outcomes. And so they're now funding the place-based program in Baltimore to do this work. And they want to expand it. And in Chicago, with our partners at Elevate Energy, we got Presence Health System, Catholic Hospital System, to use their hospital community benefit funds. And if you're not at the table for your local hospitals, what's called Community Health Needs Assessment, to push forward the work that you're doing as a health measure, you should be, and I'll happily talk to you about that. But Presence Health started to invest, and Com Edison was so inspired that they're now starting to invest. And then now we have, not up on the screen, is a foundation who's now moving to do this, to model out for the other 26 nonprofit hospitals in Chicago to become investors in the work of Elevate Energy. So we have a large call to action. But we have the data that is at hand, and data that you're producing every day, and work that you're producing. I think you are the face of healthcare. You are the new face of healthcare. Your healthcare that happens in the home. Healthcare and health that is sustained. Every major health institution in the United States is under a mandate to move people out of hospitals, to move them out of emergency rooms, and to better health. You know that it's a 99% reduction of lead in Baltimore, 98 through the state. But when we got that 99% reduction in Baltimore, not only along with our asthma work did we help return that phenomenally big figure of $44.5 billion in economic returns, but we actually put out of business one of the health clinics at the Kennedy Krieger Institute. They had the largest and most lucrative, dare I say, treatment clinics for kids with lead poisoning. It doesn't exist anymore. There weren't enough patients. And the health institution is just fine. They've now redirected their dollars, their efforts, and they are one of the premier places to treat brain injury and autism in the world. So we are working hard to change the culture of health institutions to be your partner, to invest in what you are doing, to support your work. Whether you are on the nonprofit or for-profit side. The culture will take time to change. In addition to Presence and AmeriGroup, we have the University of Utah doing investments now. We have Spectrum and Priority Health in Western Michigan. We have the big change in New York State. There's a study going on in one of the hospitals here around health and housing. It will take time, but it's starting to move. And it's starting to move at a faster and faster clip. I want to thank you for the work that you do, the importance of the work that you do, because you're helping to get those kids in the classroom healthy and ready to learn, to exceed their grade level reading scores, and to have opportunity that benefits all of us. You're helping to care for our seniors. I am now one, so I count as a senior. I was like the headshot at the beginning. That was like 10 years ago, right? So I get up here and I'm pretty old, and so whatever. But it was a bad day for me when my team came in and said, if you're over 55, you qualify for our work with seniors. And I was like, oh, shoot, right? I used to be the youngest kid in the room in everything I did, being the baby of 6. But I just thank you for helping us, working with us to break that link, to change the moral compass in America that says that housing can be, in fact, our security, the place in which we grow, we become creative, and from which we thrive. Our neighborhoods and our communities will be better off if we all have a stable night and sleep through the night. We all have better beginnings and better outcomes. And I want you to think every day about your work as a critical part of leading that. So thank you for your time. I'm happy to take questions. And there are apparently microphones I'm supposed to tell you to go to. And I don't know why I'm looking at this. I'm wearing one of these. I'm so confused, right? That 100-degree swing. But if you have a question, please go to the microphone. If we find one. Any questions? You got to be like The Price is Right. You got to come on down to the microphone there.
I wonder if you could comment on one implication of the 3-minute video we saw at the beginning. And I don't know if that was made by your organization.
It wasn't.
It wasn't, okay. It associated tight homes with these problems by showing people installing spray foam. And in my 30 years of being involved with energy efficiency, I've noticed the correlation between the healthy homes are the ones that are tight and well insulated because they pay attention to ventilation. We've just had 3 recent questions to the organization I work for, Green Building Advisor, on raining cathedral ceilings, and it's all due to air leakage. And these are wet, moldy homes because they're not tight enough. So those of us who work in this field often are met with this misunderstanding that tight homes are unhealthy homes, and I wish that video didn't perpetrate that myth. I'd just like your comment.
Well, it's a good point, and something I'll look at before we ever tee it up is really wanted people to just think about the impacts of health. I agree with you on the tight home issue, and it's on the airflow issue. So thank you for that point, and we will look at it, but agree with you on your technical point. And it's why we should make our own videos, right?
Morning. I go to all these conferences, and everybody is very concerned about the data that we have been collecting through the decades now, and the impact that the building industry has in the economy and the health and the well-being of everybody, and the climate. But when I go back after the conference to real life, I encounter serious hesitation and also resistance to take action, to take the required actions, and that needs us to put or correct the problem. So what is your advice to break that ice or to break that resistance in order that we keep moving and break the inertia that we are in?
So if I understand your question, it's about the right data?
No, it's not having the right data. We have the right data, and we have been analyzing it for decades now. What my concern is that we are very slow taking the actions that we need to correct the problem. So my question is, based on your experience of all these years, what does it take to really keep moving the ball and taking the bold actions necessary to correct the problem?
Yeah, so I'm going to come at it maybe a little bit different frame because I'm on the kind of the bigger policy side of what moves policy. And I would agree with you that you all have had the data and the evidence for decades, 30, 40 years. Those of us on the translation side of health are taking that data to move it to policy for new ways to fund it. I can tell you that what does matter is what I will call data with a soul. That data that you have translated into human stories moves policymakers, moves budget line items, moved our Public Service Commission to give $38 million to our energy efficiency and weatherization contractors to move that forward, but also has had the implication of now putting into the Maryland law and systems and requirements a bigger push on energy efficiency and weatherization. So I agree with you, I don't think it's that the data hasn't been there. It's the connection to who can move mountains a little bit more. So one of my messages today is that all the good work you're doing make sure you are making friends with the community health needs assessment person at your hospitals, the Medicaid managed care people, your education funders, your housing stability funders at your community development side, because everything you're doing is ringing the bell and answering. When at the beginning, I think I was, we came to you all in the energy efficiency field and the weatherization field and looking at the opportunity to actually advance health-based housing, to frame that out, to prove it as policy. That's why we came to you, because you all were already doing the work. And so people like me are trying to frame that work to get the investment back. But I think, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more, but I think it's those connections that have to happen in this world of social determinants integration, this integration of health and housing.
Hi, I'm curious about what specific measures you guys are finding to be most effective. It sounds like you may have done some bath fans and kitchen hoods. So are you doing vapor barriers and attics? What's really working?
Well, fixing the moisture intrusion has been probably the most effective, right? The barriers that do that, the fans and venting and getting the balance of airflow correct. Also, the sealing and doing proper sealing that not only helped on the indoor air quality measures, but helps on the things like the pest management measures. And then the sort of on the health side, the window replacement and carpet removal. So we would tell you that window replacement, if you take it on its health measures, would move the ratio at DOE, and we're talking at a national level about that, of being able to count the non-energy benefits towards your energy efficiency ratios. But it's the kind of the sealing and venting issues for sure, and moisture control.
Yeah, thank you. More info on the specific measures would be fantastic for practitioners.
I will put you in touch with Hector and our national team, right? So they do the work. I'm the generalist, unfortunately.
Hi, I work for an affordable housing developer, and we do a lot of energy work. I'm just curious about your access to data on the health side. It seems like there would be sort of some privacy issues, and just where we can get access to that data.
So we can help you and talk to you about that, but we have an economic analysis team, and so we hold actually today the Medicaid data for the state of Connecticut. We have patient data from New York. We hold patient data from Amerigroup, the Johns Hopkins Health System, the Presence Health System, the University of Utah Health System. So folks like us who do that are good partners for you, because, and we may, there aren't a lot of us who, but what we have been through is a high trust audit. We've gone through those measures that allow us to take that data and with our partners do evaluation on projects. But we'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. It's all HIPAA compliant, right? So.
Yes, I'm on a local energy committee. I've been there for quite a while.
I failed in the one thing I always love to do, which is to know your name, because we're all human beings. So
It's
let me start with
Rich Phillips.
Nice to meet you.
I'm with the Marshfield Energy Committee. We have for years visited homes, went through the homes from a potential or opportunity to weatherize them, insulate them. And we have not had a lot of success, maybe 20% or so of where we go in that they actually go ahead. But we're in the homes talking to these people. And, we're usually doing save money, comfortable home, climate. We haven't really stressed the health side. It hasn't been a part of what we have been doing. And it would be, I think, it may be available, but we really could use a 2-page summary of the health issues, because I think it's stronger, probably, than many of the things we try. People don't even move when there's a significant savings involved. There may be, using 3 times the fuel they should be using, and they would save a lot of money. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and they don't move. When it gets personal, when it gets at the health level, or even the comfort level sometimes, it's more likely to move. So I think it may be available again, but we need to have a couple of pages that summarize the kind of things you're talking about so that we can pass it to and discuss it over the kitchen table when we're in the house.
So we have that information. And also, you look here, but I have some things. I can hand you my card, or we have a 2-pager that's over here, not entirely on the health, but we can get you that. But I can also tell you that we're working with the low-income heating assistance programs in every state to become a partner in that education, because it is better if we can get people to where their energy's better, their bills are lower, and we're not having to just kind of continue to subsidize bad situations, and we're redirecting those dollars. But my information's up there. You can follow me on Twitter and just send a message. It's at Ruth Ann Norton. Our organization is at Healthy Housing. Our website's GHHI.org. And if you and you can always send a question to info@GHHI, or send it to me and I'll get you that, but I'll happily talk to you afterwards. And I don't know where we are on time, so I'll look for somebody to tell me if we're getting over. I think we're fine.
Hi, I love all of the things that...
What's your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Ann Walker. I'm with Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, we love Habitat. We love everybody. We love Habitat. We have a national relationship with you.
Yeah. Well, so a lot of your studies here seem to be focusing on larger cities, larger states. And I'm just curious, looking at Vermont, where we're 600,000 people, an aging community, not a huge tax base, and a lot of competing organizations trying to get state funding or federal funding and whatnot. Small community hospitals just don't have that, either the coffers of the sizes of the organizations that you've partnered with. So have you been doing anything at the rural level? Do you have examples of, trying to basically, apply some of your processes in rural states and rural, and rural communities?
Yep. So
I'll take that offline.
Let me just tell you that right now we are in the midst of working with our own work with Memphis Habitat for Humanity. I know it's a bigger city, but looking at that, we're doing a study. But we are also we have an office in Jackson, Mississippi, so we look at the Jackson's about 180,000, but they're smaller communities throughout the state. And we are working not only in Des Moines, but for that work to be statewide with lots of rural communities there. So I'm happy to share what we are doing. We do not have published studies yet on rural, but I can tell you about the work we're doing with local community hospitals and those connections with managed care in rural communities. Be more than happy to do that.
Robert Buchan, a wandering architect. I have one time or other been involved in housing rehab projects on 2 continents. They're never a once and done thing. You get the capital program done, you get the improvements made, then some non-profit or governmental department or private landlord organisation has the thing. Does your program have ways of encouraging the property owners to actually maintain the improvements once made, rather than getting what you often see of, oh, the fan failed, so we stick a sock in the hole and suddenly the air quality goes back to what it was, etc. Thanks.
Yes. So behavioral health and behaviors are a big part of our model program and others that are in our field of healthy housing. There's lots of good programs out there. But we, in our program, that environmental health assessor goes in with an environmental health educator, who's often also an asthma certified educator. But that job of that health educator is to stay with the family, both pre and post, do education with the owner, and stay in contact with the family. I will tell you that some of our families, not on the study basis, but just on working with them, some of our families we've worked with for 20 years, where they have moved or they're in the community. But the health behaviors and the maintenance behaviors and the energy behaviors, we have a thing called the Baltimore Energy Challenge that we're a part of that is part of that too. All of that is taught and is a critical part of our success. Clearly, the maintenance of that home or that multifamily building in common space as well is all embedded in our particular program. So happy to share on that. I have 1 minute, 30 seconds each, guys. That's okay, you can do it.
This is Tad Wilder from Green Mountain Heat Pump. I think you partially answered the question already, but I think I was kind of interested as to what percentage of the whole overall problem do you consider as lifestyle and education kinds of issues, like, for example, better window management based on temperature, things like choosing household chemicals, management of those chemicals, getting them out when you don't need them, all those kinds of things. And could you also address like some overarching thing that you do, not specifically with one set of families, but overall education of the public? Thanks.
Sure. I mean, I don't think I can give you a percentage on how much is behavioral education and how much is structural, but I do know this. Having watched it anecdotally, interacted with families directly, and looking at the data, when we change the baseline, when we reduce the mold, we improve the indoor air quality, we improve the comfort, we lower the energy bills, we stabilize families, their health improvements empirically go up, empirically. Now, we embed in that a lot of education. We embed in that a lot of follow-up, a lot of reminders. I can't give you an answer of how much, but it's a cocktail of that. The entire mission of what we do is public education around this, and educating government agencies and all of the people who need to be at the table, both the usual suspects and the unusual suspects, and bringing those together. And we create what are learning networks in every community that we're in to address that. So building those campaigns are critically important in that. And I'm happy to talk more. I know we're short on time. We have, I don't know, 23 seconds. Go.
Hi, my name is Mike Simons. I'm just curious, what would be like I'd say like the top 3 resources that would be available currently for existing energy auditors as far as workforce development goes, to kind of get people's staff thinking the same way your organization is?
Well, I mean, the places that we go for our standard, right, on that is we use in a lot of our locations CDBG money. If you have access to that, Department of Labor workforce in both state and local. We've used brownfields opportunities. We've used EPA for workforce training. And then we have state agents in Maryland. We have a number of state pieces. I will tell you one thing about hospitals. Their top things that they're really the supportive housing, anti-displacement, and workforce. Go talk to your local hospitals about get contribution on workforce development as a new way of doing it. But we've also built into our work the standards of training now to have the integrated pieces for this, whether it's lead training or weatherization. So when in Baltimore and Maryland, when we're doing weatherization techs now, we are also training them on this. I'm not the expert in my organization on the workforce side, but I will put you in touch with Adrienne Harris, who's the former director of housing in Nashville, and have her talk to you around that. Okay? I think we are out of...
Can I do one more plug? Every question you all have asked, Efficiency Vermont has a Vermont-specific answer for you through our Healthy Homes Initiative.
There you go.
So whether it's workforce training or specific measures that are working in Vermont, or what's available here locally, or working with your local hospital and what we're doing, come ask me and I'll be happy to share that with you. Thanks, Ruth Ann.